Welcome back to the GTR Player Podcast, everyone. Thrilled to have a good friend of the community on the show today. We've got Jason from Just Another Kill Team Podcast, one of the dynamic duo on the show. Welcome, Jason. How are you, mate?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me on. It feels like a great honor.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure. I've been listening to yourself and Travis for a very long time, along with the likes of Dakota and Shane and John Reese and so forth. And you genuinely helped shape my perspective of Kill Team, as well as, you know, how I essentially play the game. And podcasters like yourselves not only provide perspective on what's about to come, but I love the way you go back and you review teams, or you bring people on board to review communities and different aspects of the game. I think that's definitely one way, you know, your podcast genuinely connects Kill Team players around the world, right? And anybody who hasn't listened to Just Another Kill Team Podcast, check it out on Spotify. It's absolute magic. But Jason, today is a little bit more about you. Could you just share with us, you know, where Kill Team started as a journey for you?
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I had been working in like audio and music and stuff for a long time, and was kind of like just getting started, and then like I was smearing the line of like how much of this am I doing for work and how much am I doing for fun? And I was like, okay, I need a hobby that is like fun and creative and completely not music related. And then I was walking around the local game store, and there was a Warhammer 40,000 8th edition starter kit that was like 50% off. And I was like, you know what? I've always thought Warhammer was cool. Let me get some of the actual miniatures now that I am like an adult with adult money. And I picked up a kit and like built and painted the whole kit terribly in like one weekend, and people were like, bro, you're a madman. And just kind of, I don't know, like I met a lot of people right away, played a bunch of games. I was like, then I started like evangelizing like the 8th edition at the time and like teaching new players. And then there was like the 2018 version of Kill Team, which was like pretty much the same thing as 8th edition, but with individual models. And so I did some of that, which was mostly just because it was like kind of new player friendly. And then when Kill Team 2021 launched, I was like, oh man, this game actually looks super tight. And I played a couple games, and I was like, I think I'm going to start doing. I was like 50-50 between like 40K events and Kill Team, and just like the sportsmanship and the people and like the tightness of the rules. Kill Team just drew me in more and more and more. And now I've played a lot of Kill Team at this point.
Yeah, you've been solid at it too. And I think, look, that Octarius box was definitely the nostalgia era for Kill Team, right? It felt like chopped down 40K in first edition of Kill Team. But I think, I mean, you could still play Terminators, right? But now with Octarius, it was just something that generated a life of its own, right? It really separated itself from 40K and became a proper fully fledged skirmish game that had all of its elements baked in, which was super cool, right?
Yeah. Huge improvement.
Massive improvement, but who did you gravitate to out of that box? Were you a Death Corps of Krieg fanboy, or were you an Orc player?
Oh man, I probably actually played them both about evenly, but I never played Commandos in an event, and I did play Death Corps at the first Adepticon for Kill Team 21, and I think I got like I might have gotten like 4th place or something. It was decent.
That's huge, mate. That's huge. And tell us, like, you've been a Phobos enjoyer for quite some time. People, you're infamous with your Phobos. You know, you've got people who just root you on from the Phobos community, and then you got people who just give you the stink eye because of the way you play them. Where are you now with the team now that Phobos are kind of, you know, retiring, semi-retiring in declassification? Are you going full-on Phobos 2.0 with Black Fangs?
You know, I actually have been playing a lot of Angels of Death. And my Angels of Death are Black Templars, but with a yellow paint scheme.
Oh.
And so they're all like, they have like melted candles and torches and capes and cloaks and, you know, medieval looking masks. Uh, they're super fun. They're super cool. And I love them because they skew so hard. Like you can do 6 bolt rifles and you can just like run people down with mobile and just like hammer people if they don't have a scary melee threat. And if they've got some long range shooters, they just like can't hide from you. And if they do have scary melee threats, you just bring a bunch of chain swords and then you just still run around and shoot everyone to pieces. But when they fight you, and you like most of the time you never even block, you just strike until you die, and then you kill more people on the counteract, and there's just no brakes on the bolt gun train. And both of those skews are super fun. And only until like barely recently have I started to dabble around with some of the like the more blended takes. And I finally like brought the sniper a couple times, and I'm like, I think I'd give him like an A minus.
Yeah,
Sometimes
he's got good threat range, doesn't he?
he does. Yeah, like if a team doesn't have super conceal and it's like a tomb world board that has some light cover that they need to go to, you can bring him and he's pretty good. Still not sure if he's better than just a chainsword guy. Because, like, if you're threat saturating someone and you have someone in the back that's not contributing to the violence, it's not great. Whereas if you're just, like, shoving bolt pistols down people's throat and you've got one extra guy to do it, you need to, like, hit a certain threshold of violence. And if you don't, this entire carnival of violence, as some people have called it, collapses. So you really got
Yeah.
to hit that threshold.
You can't not go full onga bunga, right?
Yeah. Well, and like pretty much every time I lose a game, I mean, I guess I lost a couple at the Renegade event that just happened, but it's like most of the time I'm like, okay, I saw where like chose something that wasn't violent enough, and if I chose violence, I probably would have won that one.
Absolute gold, mate. Absolute gold. You've just come back from the Worlds, right? You've just come back from the World Championships of Warhammer. How was that?
That was very fun. So I didn't actually get a golden ticket, but I was just like, like I probably know at least half the people that are going to be there. So I'm just going to like go and walk around and talk to people and record a bunch of interviews, which for anyone that didn't hear those, that was a super fun project. It was the first time I had done anything quite like that. So I just like, I don't know, I might have hit like 60 people and I just like asked everyone the same 4 questions and we just like, I don't know, it was fun.
It was super cool, mate. It was super cool. It was really good to hear everybody's responses. It was a good spread as well. I mean, I heard Dan was on there, Dan C from Melbourne, Michael Burke was on there. I mean, Jas Boone, he's technically Canadian now, right? But we sent him over there. So it was
Yeah.
great to hear some familiar voices, really talk about it. And the questions are great. Who are you? What are you playing? How can we fix Canoptech? And what was the last one?
And then I also have, what was your biggest lesson that you've learned so far?
Oh, true story. That was actually a really good question. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, such a good spread across 2 episodes, right? I loved listening
Yeah.
to those. I literally love listening to those because I think everybody takes away something really unique and individual away from tournaments. But the Canoptech question had a lot of cascading similarities through the responses, right? It was quite good to hear things like, make the prawns count towards the kill up. You know, don't make them revive as easy. I mean, I literally before the last errata or balanced data slate, I got absolutely done by a mate of mine, Pete, who is playing Canoptech, and I literally had all of my Vespers halfway up the board. He was back in his deployment, so just sitting back pretty and scoring points, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous, right? So it's definitely OP.
Yeah. The crazy fortress that just beats the game with taking no risk.
Yeah, literally no risk. But hey, at least they can't score with the nodes now, right? So they have to actually come out into the open to score something.
Take a
They'll
little bit
still,
of risk. Yeah.
yeah, they'll still throw D3 at you on explosion, right? But that's hilarious. That's absolutely hilarious. So you were there, you hovered around for the world champs. It was good to see Ace win that. I thought that was really exciting. Um,
Quite a
you
plot
know,
twist. Yeah.
oh, huge plot twist with mandrakes as well. I mean, that is just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
He's a solid player, solid surgical player. But tell us, mate, you've been creating content for quite some time. You've spoken about your music background. Like, how you got into creating content, I think was cool. And you mentioned, buying that box at 50 off. Where did your journey go from there?
Yeah. I mean, so I guess like a huge part of my role for a long time was just like community building. And so I was just like, I was posting all over the Facebook groups and I was like, hey, who wants to like play this game? Like, I'll teach you. I'll bring everything for like 5 different teams and all the tokens and everything. And like, you can pick some stuff and whatever. So I did that a bunch and people were like, oh man, you should start a Discord server. And I was like, like didn't even know what Discord was barely. Like I knew it existed and I was like, all my friends use it for voice chat and video games. And I was like, okay, I'll try it out. So I did that, and then like everyone that I taught how to play Kill Team, I invited into it, and then like other people started inviting other people, and then people started making QR code flyers and posting them in the game stores and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I think we're close to like 600 people in that Discord server, which is
Wow.
just like, which is huge. And then there's like a Warhammer 40K YouTube channel that's on the West Coast. I forgot what the name of it is because I don't do a lot of 40K these days. But they wanted to do a Kill Team special, and they just like asked around for like friends and network, and they're like, oh, who are people that are like movers and shakers in Kill Team? And two of the people that were flagged were me and Travis, because like I had
Uh,
run a 24-person tournament in the first year, which was like one of the bigger ones that had happened like in the whole world in that first year. And like Travis had run a big event as well, and then like we had both gone to events and like placed pretty well. So just the people that those guys asked um, flagged us, and then whatever that was going to be fell apart. But like we were connected, and I was like, oh, Travis, what if we did our own podcast just for fun, anyways? Because I'd kind of had a little bit of interest in that. I've recorded other podcasts for like financial companies and just all sorts of stuff, just like professionally doing podcast stuff. And I like from watching other people, like I only did the technical stuff, just like setting up the microphones, polishing the audio. And I was like, man, if I was doing a podcast, it would be way more conversational and like whatever. And then I had kind of thought it would be fun to do something for Kill Team, and like the first couple people I asked were local people, and everyone was like, "Well, why should we do a podcast? Like, what is the world missing? Like, what makes your podcast different?" And I was like, "I don't know, and I don't care. It's just another Kill Team podcast."
and
And
that's where
then
the name was born. That's gold.
and that's where it came from. Yeah. So then I was like, I talked to Travis about it, and then I was like, and then he asked the same thing, and I was like, I don't know, man. It's just another Kill Team podcast. And I was like, honestly, that would be pretty search engine optimized. So we kind of like talked about it. We're like, I mean, I guess whatever. Like, if we just do it until it's not fun anymore, there's nothing to lose.
And the rest is history, right? And the
Yeah.
rest is history.
Yes.
And I did the other day listen to your very first podcast, and I hadn't actually listened to it before, but going back and hearing how you both started, very friendly, very jovial, very conversational, very green, but soon turned into something that you get for an hour, such a big spectrum of information crammed into one. And
Yeah.
I've told you before, that's why I love your content, because I can listen to it on the way to work and just be so well informed with so many different elements, from guests who come in and talk about how they play their specialty faction right through to things people need to consider. And you take a very conversational tone to it. So does Travis, but you can tell Travis kind of gets a little analytical about it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just so good to hear. It's just such a good flavor hit for my brain when I'm driving into work. I mean, definitely something I recommend everybody listen to. But tell me, I know my answer to this, right? And I ask all guests who come on the show, like, what makes Kill Team so magical for you? Why do you keep playing it? I mean, you're creating content for it, and we both know how you started with the passion, with the community building, all of that. But why do you keep coming back to it?
Well, so I mean, there's like several layers to it. The community stuff, even on its own, has several layers to it, and then the game itself has like several layers to it, and then the way that they all like interact also. So it's like for the community layer, there's the podcast really opened it up to like the global community, because it's just like, I mean, Travis just like pulls up stats and we look at it and we're like, oh man, there's someone in Argentina that did some crazy thing with like Vespids that no one's doing. Let's get them on. And then so we just like hunt and find people in the stats. And we've had a couple of people that just like message us directly, and then they're like, "Oh, I've got some cool stuff." And then we chat with them a little bit, and it's like, I think that would be really fun. Like, is there a way we can spin this into like being a cool episode? And it is just like I love to tie people in. So like just people reaching out and like having a conversation and we turn that into an episode. We're just like reaching more people and like finding people in the stats and you can find them in Discord and do all that. And it's all of a sudden it's like if there's all these recurring people that we talk to from all over the world, it feels like we're part of this like giant global community, and that's just like absolutely incredible, super fun. I mean, it feels very like fulfilling. And then also the local scene, we've got a ton of people. Like I said, our local Discord is, I mean, we're close to like 600 people in there, and it's just super active. There's stuff going on all the time. We have like 4 days a week in within like a half an hour drive of my house that host games. Like I just like before this, I popped in and checked on the Monday crowd, and there was like 10 people in a brewery playing Kill
Wow.
Team, and I was just like, man, this is like the local scene is booming, and like the community between both of those layers just feels super active and super fresh.
Mm, I
And
definitely
then
think, yeah, you mentioned
yeah,
something there. Kinship is really important. And I think, the fact that we all play Kill Team, you could definitely sense a layer of kin, not to bring stunty love into it with salvages or Jaegers, but right, there's definitely a kinship. Everybody who plays Kill Team, except for maybe one or two that I've met in my travels, everybody seems to have a similar affection towards it. And there's similarities in people's personalities as well, right?
yeah, yeah,
Sorry, didn't
absolutely.
mean to interrupt. Back to you, mate.
No, that's great. Yeah, super true. And the other part, so I kind of talked about the community stuff already, but then like the game itself, just with all the constant, like we get new teams all the time, and like the more that a new team shakes up the meta, the better. Where it's like, oh, there's this huge problematic thing, and it's like the way if everyone's like comfortable and everything feels solved, and then a new team comes in and it doesn't make a splash, it's like whatever, it's the same meta. But then it's like now it's like we got the Wolf Scouts coming in. It's a big shakeup, and everything that you knew on like how to beat the top team is just like doesn't necessarily apply to this. So that gives us everyone a new puzzle to solve. And then also that might like shake some pieces out where like all of a sudden some new dark horse is gonna like come creeping out of the shadows, and all of a sudden mandrakes are secretly poised to win the whole thing when everyone's been worried about Deathwatch and Canoptic Circle. And just like the complexity of the game from that level is so dynamic and it's so rich, and it's basically just like the community and this enormous puzzle that like thousands of people can't 100% solve, and that makes the huge puzzle that we're all working on even more fun. And it's just like I don't know, it's incredible.
And you'll get people, right? You'll get people who see something in a team and just take it to another level, and everybody's like, "Wow, that was an amazing formula. Let's try and replicate that." Right? Ace did it recently at World Championships.
Yeah,
Alexa did it with Sanctifiers over at WTC. Right? They saw something in
yeah,
those teams that nobody else did. Even I think what was it 20 was it 2020 2023 World Championships with Alexa playing Colts versus
yeah,
Harbour at the end of it. They both played Colts because they both saw something in it, right? And then you'll
yeah,
have people like Orion see Galapox, not even needing to take hits. It's retaining two straight off the bat. So why even bother rolling dice? They'll see things and they'll play it, and that's what. Honestly, from a layer perspective within the game, and again, shout out to the game designers. They're transforming the game in a way that I think, yeah, is it a little bit more technical? Yeah, but is it bringing value to the game that we just can do so many things off the back of? 100%. And I couldn't agree with you more, mate.
yeah. Super incredible, absolutely magical. That's definitely what keeps me coming back.
I genuinely, even when I look at different Warhammer systems, haven't seen a layer of that type of not only complexity, but it being that attractive for me to keep wanting to play it. And I've been playing it for like 4 years now, right? So it's kept
Yeah,
kept me locked into the driver's seat for sure. I do like some of the antics from Blood Bowl. right?
Yeah.
I think Blood Bowl brings some shenanigans in with it, and 40k Big Hammer always be Big Hammer, but Kill Team's where it's at for me.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Let's talk about this edition, right? And it kicked off with Volcus and a bunch of complementary boxes after that. Now we're into Tomb World, but comparing it back to second edition and it being minimized to 3 objective markers and introducing things like the kill op and primary, how are you finding the game as opposed to second edition?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people really appreciate all the changes from second to third edition. I mean, there's definitely probably some people that are less excited about it, and I feel like during the changeover there were some people that kind of fell off a little bit, but it seems like that we also had a lot of new players that jumped in. And then like from the podcast metrics, I mean, I feel like our listener base is probably kind of like parallel with the journey of like Kill Team in general, since we started so early. And like when there's big news for the game, we see all the rises and the dips, and like third edition came out and just there was a huge explosion in interest, and it's easier to teach. I mean, it's still a complicated game, but like the fact that it was like the way you orders work is like you're locked in for like all of turn one, and then on turn two the rules change on how orders work was like kind of a mess. Where like now it's just like you deploy with a conceal order, and the way it used to work starting in turns two onward, it now just works that way for the whole game, and it's so much cleaner.
It
Um,
is. I think it is, and
yeah,
I think what I really noticed as well, and this was really evident in the last tournament, is that there wasn't the level of swing that you saw in second edition. I mean, things like Alpha Strikes were well catered for. I mean, they did bring kill ops back into it, which I think was another way of actually turning Kill Team into Kill Team. But do you want to risk it for the biscuit, right? So I
hmm
think a thing we really saw is that the parity between the points was quite minimal, and people were winning on skill and prowess rather than a blast attack from a balefire acolyte turning point one, right? And games are actually going for the full 4 rounds or thereabouts in a 2 hour match, right? Whereas
yeah,
you could see 21-0 in second edition quite regularly, right? With people who didn't know what they were doing. But a thing I think really speaks for the cool complexity of the game is these changes that keep coming in, right? And nobody likes change. So at the start, you'll get people going, oh, who moved my cheese kind of thing, and be like, oh, I'm not happy with this. I was used to this. This was my weekly thing. But to your point, they come back after they realize it ain't all that bad, and it's being done for a much better experience in game, right?
yeah. Yeah, and like the tac ops were in second edition were definitely interesting, but kind of clunky because you had like those three different things you had to keep track of. And now, I mean, like the game is already so complicated that having three different tac ops that are worth 2 points each is a lot to keep track of. So just like now streamlining that, because it's already like you have the mission, and the missions aren't always like the absolute simplest, and like you can forget stuff in there, and that's just like one more potential point of failure on just like keeping juggling so many things. And then like the kill op and having one tac op and knowing all your rules and stuff, like it's still very complex but way streamlined, and I think that was a really big improvement as well.
Do you remember where we had to pick up 2 tac ops, select one, and discard the other until we got down to 3? I mean, that was a cool process, but to your point, getting into the game as quick as possible is what it's all about, right?
Yeah,
That's where I
yeah,
think it should be. It should be as quick as possible to start while still being intriguing. I'm personally glad they removed scouting, because that was quite complex to teach new players, and I think it was unbalanced in being able to give teams like salvagers an extra piece of equipment, right? They can already do when they can already do 5. It was just a bit overwhelming. I know I abuse that a bit, but I think mechanics that are a bit overbearing and overwhelming have been removed, and I think it's a much more efficient game now.
Yeah. Yeah, their scouting definitely had some like you said, it just like added a layer of clunk and complexity, and it slows the game down, and then like that dash could like trigger a crazy alpha strike, and we don't need all that.
And I think again the complexity that brought with regards to who won initiative or who could potentially win initiative was a little bit clunky as well. So I'm glad,
Yeah.
personally, I'm glad that's been removed. But when we come over into Tomb Worlds, and you mentioned this playing Angels of Death before, the light terrain definitely helps some of the maps they've crafted for Tomb Worlds, which I think personally is what some of Gallo Dark was missing. What are your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, I mean, Tomb World definitely they learned a lot like from the map layouts themselves, having the light terrain there, especially like if we lose the option to take extra barricades in the scouting phase, having the light scatter terrain goes a long way. And I think part of that is also like lessons learned from Beta Decima, where if it's just a shooting gallery and you like no one wants that, which I think is a little bit of a shame because I'm like, that's just another meta shakeup where it like adds another thing to solve. And like, if you're all like comfy and cozy on Felgor being the best, and it's like, well, here's Beta Decima, you better figure something else out. And if there's just a couple of them floating around, it just shakes up the entire tournament. And I still think that's kind of interesting, but like they shook it up too hard, so I think it kind of like is like new Gallo Dark that learned the lessons from all the terrain we've had so far, and makes it less of a shooting gallery. And who knows? Maybe if we make the game accept shooting teams a little bit more, that will partially come with like tiptoeing into terrain that lets you shoot a little better.
No, for sure, for sure. And mate, you touched on Beta Decima there. What are your thoughts on that? Is it still something that might be competitively playable if it wasn't on water?
I mean, I would absolutely love to have some of the Beta Decima terrain floating around and be valid. And like there was the East Coast US guys, that the New England scene, that made a map pack that had some extra scatter terrain, and like it seems like people have been enjoying that. I still haven't played it just because it has extra scatter terrain, and I haven't like went and seeked it out. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'll ask one of my friends to 3D print some, and then I'll convert mine into that. But I mean, I think it's a shame because I love the big shakeups, and like for Angels of Death, it's fine because I'm like, I'll bring chainswords if it's all close quarters. If I land on the Beta Decima, I'm bringing all bolt rifles, and there's not a lot of teams that scare Angels of Death on any map, including Beta Decima.
But no good for Raveners though, right?
No good for Raveners at all. So it's like, yeah, that's tough. And yeah, I mean, like, have you tried anything like just like put it on a normal board so there's no water and it's fine?
We're doing it on a normal board right now. We're putting together a couple of map packs for it. And I think it's going to actually be playable because taking things into consideration like heavy terrain and so forth, you can still do deployment and still keep safe, even with a group of like 14 operatives, right?
Yeah.
You just grab some light or heavy barricades if need be, and you manage it that way. But a couple of the boards, which I'll share with you guys in the coming weeks, I think replicate what it should be, minus some of the jank that I think penalizes some teams like Raveners really heavily. But
Yeah.
I personally love it. I was playing Vespids, and I know a lot of people hated me playing Vespids on Beta Decima, so I've parked the Vespids and I'm moving over to the Darkstar team out of Dead Silence. But I think Beta Decima's got a lot of play as long as it's a bit more balanced for the majority of teams, right? It doesn't really penalize a lot of teams like Mandrakes. Mandrakes do no well on Beta Decima. Raveners do no well on Beta Decima. So as long as it accommodates them, I think it's a good potential, well-rounded set of terrain.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I'll keep an eye out for those boards because I'm very interested. Do you need like extra scatter terrain or just put it on a normal board?
You don't need extra. There's a couple of bits of terrain like a container. I would recommend you get. Everybody's got those containers, right? They came in an Imperium magazine or in
Hmm.
a box of 3, and they work really well. And there's maybe 2 or 3 little bits you need, but aside from that, I think it's perfectly fine.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tell me, have you played any narrative of late? Is narrative something you get into?
So actually, when I went to the World Champs, I uh was there for one day just walking around talking to people, and then I just kind of the grand narrative started, and I did day one of that, which was fun. And then I dropped out after the first day because there was a drop in the World Champs, and then I just like jumped in as a ringer, which was that's a little more my speed. The narrative games, I mean, it's the 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 narrative stuff that my locals have put together, I enjoyed more than the grand narrative. The grand narrative had like way more like atmospheric vibes, costumes, storytelling. Like that stuff was all super on point. But like the local stuff, the two narrative events that I've done in Minnesota, one of them was kind of like an Ashes of Faith sort of campaign where there's like a
Nice.
map and you've got teams and you've got captains, and it was sort of like a team tournament where but it was like 8 versus 8, and then you like choose maps and you're like, okay, on this one you get this buff and like try to do this stuff, and it was like goofy missions and stuff like that. But it was like um I don't know, like the team captain thing was really interesting, and that was super fun. And then one of the other ones was a escape from the Gallo Dark theme, and sort of like the big variation there was you use D20s for initiative instead of D6,
Oh,
but it's also a random table of stuff that happens. So it's like if you roll a 1 and I roll a 17, 17 is like there's a loss of gravity. Everyone gets -2 inches of movement but flies, and a 1 is like one of the objectives explodes, and then you like roll a d6, and then that objective is destroyed from the game. The entire room is destroyed, all doors close, and everyone inside of it dies, and you can't open those doors ever again.
wow.
Or it's like you roll like a 14, and then it's like it's a gravity slam. Everyone goes to the west until they hit a wall, and the further you go, the more damage you take. And it's just like the D20 initiative on crazy stuff happening was just absolute craziness. And then the goal was to reach the escape pods and then hit the button to eject your people to safety. And that was like we really the first year we did that. I even like had a playlist, and it was a mix of like video game music and like Doom soundtrack and stuff like that. And I put all like the DJ lights because that's what I do for my day job, which is a night job. And then like we
That's
had
awesome.
alternating like orange and blue and red lights in there, and it was just like moody colors and like heavy metal and explosions and Escape the Galadark, and that was an absolute blast.
That sounds
Super fun.
amazing. That sounds like Angron ripping down the board on boarding actions and just taking people out and splitting the board, right? That's insane.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
legitimately all the doors closed in that room, everybody in that room dead.
Yep. And that was like one of the things that
Wow.
could happen. And across like 2 games that I played, I think it happened once, and like I got lucky, and I think I lost like one Kasserkin, and my opponent lost 2 Space Marines.
Wow. I mean, you look at things like that and you look at elements that the community kicks in to just, diversify the game a bit. And I don't know if you're excited as I am for the final box with the final boss in it, right? But personally, I can't wait to see what that looks like. As spoke to John Sow on the first episode of the podcast, and he really liked the hordes of just respawning Necron warriors, right? And he said that was really
Yeah.
hard, but it was really cool. And I think as it builds up to this final box, we're going to see like a story that plays from start to finish, which I think is really cool. Because when we played narrative in second edition, you got, special requisition equipment, which was really cool, but it didn't have that story element. So people would create
Yeah.
themselves. And what I love about the game designers, and I think Elliot, from off the back of his Ashes of Faith box, really went all in on just the narrative thematic elements. And I think that's bringing a level of play in for the narrative players that I think is really exciting as well. And it's just great to see Kill Team, get across the spectrum with solo play, co-op play, narrative play. I think it's bringing something really special in for any type of player you are, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
have you got
absolutely.
and have you got any aspirations to go play in a grand narrative sometime, mate?
Maybe. One thing that I have kind of thought about, especially if like, because the Las Vegas Open in the U.S. used to be like the big January
Yes.
thing, and they moved to October. So I'm like, should I try to run a big thing in January? It sounds like there's
Oh,
one of the new opens is going to be popping up, but I was like, if I did, usually you can't get a golden ticket until it's year two. So then, if that's the case, maybe my draw to get a bunch of people to show up is that it's going to be an epic narrative event for year one, and then and
oh,
do something where like one of them, like if we did a 2 day thing, it could be like one day was that escape the Galadark, like I said, with the D20 initiatives and explosions, and then the other one would be like you've crash landed and it's all these different custom kill zones, and we've got like a jungle and like a beta decima and all the like different stuff like that, and there's no two, every single one is unique, and they're not all like perfectly balanced, but and then like it maybe it would be like the only scoring track is tac ops, but it's all custom tac ops. So it would be like everyone has their own agenda. You don't care about the crit op. Your objective might be kill op, but it might be something else, and it would just be like you get a deck, and maybe there's 5 win conditions, and across the event you choose 3 of them. Stuff like that I think would be a really fun. I don't know, like homebrew stuff sounds is. I mean, like I've always been super passionate also about the overstepping my boundaries in the creative space. So I'm like, I am also like a game designer at heart. So like stuff like crazy homebrew stuff like this is really exciting.
oh, mate, you're gonna have to let us know if you do. I genuinely have been meaning to get out to LVO, and apologies, Dakota. I know I've been saying this for quite some time, but I genuinely want to get out there, not only for the Las Vegas Open in general and Kill Team, but I've always been drawn to narrative events, and hearing some of the stuff you've mentioned, as well as what Dakota's been doing, I think just make the game so much more interesting. Because don't get me wrong, I love match play, I love competitive play, but sometimes you just want to walk away feeling as though you've played in a story with some of the lighting you've mentioned, right? And I know
Yeah,
it's a Dakota that does it with black lights. Somebody does the game in the pure
yeah,
dark with black lights, and they paint their minis the way they want to. So when they put the black light on, it just glows like Tron, right? And I think that's just so amazing. That's the kid in me just coming out and going, I wish.
yeah. Oh man, yeah, yeah. My I think my first big event should be a narrative. That sounds. We've fueled that fire. I'm excited about that.
Mate, genuinely. I mean, and tell us, like, is narrative a big thing in your scene in Minnesota, or is it just are you just basically, exploring all of that at the moment?
I mean, so we we have a lot of people that will like play casually. I mean, I think pretty much every scene is probably like this. And but like the core group of competitive people is definitely the smallest portion. And like we've had some. I mean, like last year, I think every time someone did a narrative event, it was way easier to get more people to show up than any of the tournaments.
Mm.
So I feel like it's a really good fit for our local scene. I mean, I've always been, especially like in second edition, the spec ops was like too crunchy for me because I was like, you got to keep track of everything. You got to commit to one team for a long time. You need to like remember your upgrades that you got last time. I was like, I'm not gonna remember all that. Just let me like play the thing. So then that kind of like drove me like closer to the competitive stuff. I mean, like the content and the stuff we do is all like kind of in the vein of competitive kill team. So like personally, that's I'm hugely more in the competitive space, but like we've had some of the, like I said, some of this narrative stuff is super fun, and I would be very excited to stoke that fire again and see like what happens, because I'm sure we can get more people crawling out of the woodworks and like I don't know. Maybe I could hit like a 40-player epic narrative thing or something around here.
Well, in all honesty, other than what I told you about some dabblings in second edition of Kill Team, we have no known or visible narrative players here in Australia. I mean, if there are, they're playing at home and they're not telling anybody else about it, right? I think that's where
Yeah.
these boxes really help those types of players. But I'd love to see a narrative event here in Australia. I would definitely play. But yeah, fingers crossed. You throw one, or Dakota continues to throw them, and I can make a trip over for that one, right?
Yeah, that'd be sick. That'd be very cool.
Yeah, legitimately, I've been avoiding it for far too long. But tell me, going back to content, and you've mentioned your involvement in music and how you started off connected with Travis and so forth. We've got a lot of people who are really passionate about content, listening in. What suggestions, recommendations in terms of tips would you give for people wanting to do, release, or create their own content?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And so I think workflow is everything. I mean,
Mm.
I've like doing the technical stuff and I've done some like production and like, managing schedules for projects, whether it was like producing a musical album or producing a podcast or producing an audiobook, and I've done stuff like that. And like the people that self-produce have the hardest time every single time just being like it needs to be perfect. So they like do it again and they tweak it and they do it again and they tweak it. And like that drove me to be like the absolute opposite. So I'm like, we're gonna record it one time live. Like if there's an absolute train wreck, then I'm gonna like push a button on my software that puts a flag there, and then I go straight to that flag. I clip that one thing that was a train wreck, and then otherwise it's like the easiest workflow ever is what I'm going for, and like nothing has to be perfect, and all you need to be is consistent and authentic. So as long as you're just like, well, you're literally having fun, everyone in the audience is also literally having fun. And if you're like, man, I'm getting bored of this, it's tedious, I'm like clicking around in the EQs for hours to make stuff sound good, and like you're not having any fun and the steam goes away. So just like make it as easy as possible and focus on vibes above everything else.
Oh, vibes are definitely where it's at, right? Because people feed off that. Like it's the energy you're projecting,
Yeah.
regardless of what medium it's being presented on. If you haven't got the vibe there and there isn't genuine passion coming from yourself and who you're talking to, I think that definitely is projected and portrayed across any platform.
Yeah.
And what's you mentioned workflow there, and making sure things are done in stages, and to your point, making sure you don't fuss about it too much, but you just project it as well. It literally is about getting in and having a go, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like the way that we record the Just Another Kill Team podcast is I have a software on my computer that lets me make essentially like a digital audio board so I can connect anything to anything. So like if most of the time we just do everything on a Discord call, and then I literally just plug Discord into a virtual device, and then a microphone that I have a little bit of treatment running into the same virtual device, and then I record Discord on one channel, I record myself on one channel, so that's Travis and the guest. And then the other thing that's kind of a hack is Discord has like some of the best passive sound treatment for voices of any software out there anywhere. Like
Mm.
if you're talking to someone on a Discord call and someone is like watching TV in the background, Discord filters it out flawlessly and like better than any other software. So it's just like cheat codes that everyone is using Discord, and like we talk to all sorts of people all over the place. Some people just call in on their phone and they're like sitting in their car, and they're just like using their cell phone microphone, and like Discord cleans that up so much, and they're like ahead of everyone else in the game of just making it so easy that like I'm like, all right, everyone, we'll do like a 5 minute conversation before we start recording, and then I balance the levels between Travis and the guest until that's looking pretty good, and then I like run a compressor on it within the software I use, which is Ableton Live, because like I said, I mostly am like a DJ and a music producer, so I just use that all the time anyways. And then I put a compressor on the whole thing and slap a little EQ on there and send it.
Hey, that is great, but I can't in any way, shape, or form fault the fact of when you hear chickens in the background. Like I think you were doing a interview with Jake Sario from the Philippines, and there were
Yeah,
chickens in the background. Like that just added to the character of the show, right? Because that's what really does it for me when I hear you speak to people from different backgrounds and different regions of the world, and some of that audio just filters in, like it makes it real. Like there's an element
yeah,
of coolness about it, right? I think that's something, but to your point, I haven't heard it since then. So I think they've upped their game on that ambient noise reduction for sure. And
yeah.
Discord being the cheat code for podcasts and so forth. Thanks for sharing that. But is there any kind of other content you create? Like the one thing I love about your podcasts is the magical images you use where you superimpose people's heads onto
Yeah,
Marines and so forth. I mean, is
yeah.
there anything you can share around, better projecting your mediums?
Yeah, so Travis has a couple of friends in New York that are behind the scenes guys. So one of them does all the graphic design, and then
What a
the other
legend.
one does all the social media posts and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, they're great. They're super on the ball. So I mean, that's three different states and three different time zones immediately for everyone that works on it. Travis and I chat with whoever we do. We throw it in the internal like planning chat, and then the gang just like spits it out.
Oh wow! So it's like a team. This is like a proper production. That's phenomenal. So tip
Yeah,
there, guys. If you know anybody in graphic design or any kind of social media, leverage them for sure. That's phenomenal. I thought you guys did it all, but that's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And mate, getting back to the game itself, could you share with us what's your favorite team of all time? I mean, I'm thinking in my head Phobos. Would that be a right call for you?
Phobos is a good one. I mean, I think it's a pretty tough split between Phobos and Angels of Death, and I have been trending a little bit more towards Angels of Death just because they're no one has a bad time playing against Angels of Death, whereas when you hit someone with all of the Phobos tricks, it's really nasty.
Yeah, yeah, it is
So
pretty
Angels of
dirty.
Death is the friendlier choice, and I've like, especially over the last year, I've been trending more and more where I'm like, I do want to win like events and do well, and like I want to get a golden ticket and stuff, but I absolutely don't want to do anything that like compromises any friendships, and like if yeah, I don't want to play like crush anyone's feelings and have them salty or anything. So I'm like, Angels of Death is super honest. They're super strong and they like know no fear. So I'm just like just stomp down the field and shoot everyone with like bolt guns, and it's like the most honest thing ever. And like no one can ever be mad at it. And like if you do well, it's like I don't know, like it's
Yeah,
easy to celebrate.
yeah, respect definitely. I mean, they're not canoptic, right?
Yeah. And like weirdly, Angels of Death is kind of like a dark horse counter meta pick because like no one's talking about them as like a serious thing to bring to tournaments. And like my hot take is I'm like, are they better than Deathwatch? Like this is a discussion that can be had.
Ooh, that's actually an interesting call there. No double counteracts, but I see where you're coming from. I mean, definitely at least one more expendable operative for sure. But
And then they're
no,
like almost as durable, and you do get one double counteract, and then you can have the entire team double shooting unrestricted, which is like the strongest part of any Space Marine. And then also they keep on getting buffs. So now it's like if you sharpshooter double shoot and then you still reposition or charge later, you're accurate, severe, balanced, piercing crits, and you double shoot and then charge, and then you counteract, kill someone with a chainsword and throw a crack grenade. Like
oh dear God.
craziness. Craziness.
Oh dear God, bit of setup required, but definitely if you can pull that off, it's absolutely diabolical. I don't know if you're going to have any friends at the end of that move, though, mate.
But everyone sees it coming from a mile away.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And if they don't, they're no longer your friend, guaranteed for sure, for sure. So no Black Fangs for you? No cheeky Black Fangs Ghost Pack?
I mean they look cool. My buddy Pierce that we added to the podcast recently,
Ah,
they're like
yes.
his spirit animal. Like they're his favorite thing ever. Like so he was like playing Space Wolf Phobos like when he was like, "Teach me to be good at this game. I want to play Phobos." And I was like, "Well, I can teach you a lot about Phobos." And he made him Space Wolves, and then this came out, and I was like, "Oh man, this is Pierce's team. I can't step on his toes."
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'll tiptoe around and try them out. If I did play them, I actually have a plan to make a corn version, so they'd be the
Ooh.
corn dogs, the dogs of
Wow.
corn, and
The corn dogs, that's gold.
the corn dogs. Yeah. So I'm like, and without having to hunt around too much for conversions, I do like three warriors, the pack leader, and the fang bearer because the fang bearer is insane. And I'm like the wizard guy. I'd probably do that. The dark apostle or whatever, the burning book. I'm like that guy's
Yeah.
pretty sick. I don't
Yeah.
know. Plasma gun easy. I don't know what I do for a sniper. I don't know if like maybe the sniper is not corn enough, and for that reason alone, I drop him.
Maybe it's a guy holding a spear, right?
And he just snipes people with a spear. He chucks it
Snipes
across the
people with a
map.
spear. He's just got this massive demon arm,
Yeah, It's
and he
the
just
the
and he
it's
just
the big
yeets it
jetpack
across.
guy.
Oh yeah,
The Harkin, whatever that dude's name is, just paints him up as a
yeah,
world eater, and he's the sniper.
yeah. Why not? Why not? That's amazing. But maybe when Pierce isn't playing um, the pack, you can grab them.
That is potentially possible. Maybe it'll be like Pierce. Let me borrow them for a weekend on a
Yeah,
day that you can't go to something or something. I don't know. But
that's
they're fun. They're cool. Um, I'm also very interested in the stealth suits. Just today even I played 3 games and I got absolutely obliterated every single time. But I was like, okay, I made some diabolical mistakes. But also people can just stack reduce piercing and then the accurate 3 melted guns become useless. And then you're like, the burst cannons do an average of like 3 damage a shot, and I'm like, I want to squeeze more sauce out of this, but
how. That's still yet to
it's
be
early.
discovered, right? I
Yeah,
think I magnetized all of mine, so I won't be playing Black Fang's Ghost Pack. I'll be giving that to a friend of mine, but I'm definitely playing the Dark Star team, and I've painted them all up full weeb style like Evangelions, and I've magnetized all of the weapons. So just in case I come up against the Horde team and I want to use chain cannons, I can.
yeah, that's fantastic. And then you can also just like swap them around if you're like, you know what, in this matchup, I want the instigator to be the pop smoke guy because you're not going to shoot at me a lot. Or if it's like, you know what, I
Exactly.
want the pop smoke guy to run up with the burst cannon, and I'm going to give the Melta to my leader, who's going to go out last with accurate.
Exactly. Exactly. And then tell me, mate, with the last box coming out, the Sisters versus Warp Talons, what are you thinking there? Which one are you leaning more towards?
The Warp Talons is a very easy, obvious for me. I mean, I randomly got a box of Warp Talons like a year ago just because I was like, man, Warp Talons are cool. I'm gonna like put them on display. And then I was like, I hope they get a kill team sometime or something I could proxy. And then it was just
Mm,
like, boom, here they come for real. Especially, I love to just like spam basic warriors. So like I actually did do a big spell of mandrakes and I brought the mandrakes to worlds and that's what I played in the grand narrative. And that's what I played for the ringer games. But my mandrakes are bloodletters. Anyways, that's slightly off topic. But just anything that you can spam warriors and just like run something simple and get really good with the basics is kind of like my favorite stuff. So if you can just be like, let me bring 5 warp talons and a chaos lord, like that sounds awesome.
that sounds hefty as. Sounds hefty as. I'm definitely leaning more towards the Warp Talons myself, but I know a lot of my friends are going for the revamped Sisters teams with Sword and Shield, right? It'll be interesting
Also
to see
looks
how they
super
play.
cool.
Yeah, whole Sword and Shield aesthetic really does it for me as well because I never play Imperial. I never. I'm always Chaos Xenos, right? But those, like, maybe turning them into something I think would be worthwhile, give it having a crack because melee just does it for me as well. I really like
Yeah.
getting up in people's faces and just hunga bungering until the cows come home for sure. For sure. Jason, we're coming up until the top of the hour. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out in your community? Anybody at all? Your scene?
Oh man, I feel like there's a lot of people. I guess I will specifically shout out Ted from Minnesota. I know that, like there was a little bit of a meme. People were like, Ted from Minnesota. I'm like, oh, he actually exists. Well, we have a guy over here whose name is Ted, and he runs the Wednesday weekly thing, and he teaches a ton of new players over here. And like he doesn't get a lot of time to like go to tournaments and play events. And like a lot of the stuff that he does do is just like for the people. And he's added a lot to the local scene and taught a bajillion people, and just shouting out Ted.
He's the type of person that makes the Kill Team community turn, like, keep ticking over, right? Welcoming new people in, because I think that's one thing that the community has, people like Ted, who just want people to play the game. Just want more people in, selfishly to play more people, but also as well to see people, rise through the ranks, get that competitive edge or get a taste for playing competitively, and then heading over to Worlds. And I think people like Ted are salt of the earth people in the community for sure. And mate, you ran the Renegade Open recently. Is there any other tournaments coming up that you'd like to call out?
So I pretty much just like promoted the Renegade, and then my buddy Lee ran it, and he did a fantastic job. So actually, huge shout out to Lee as well. He's the same guy that made that Escape from the Gallowdark thing I was talking about. The dude's an absolute legend. But yeah, and I mean, like, we don't have a big one in Minnesota at the moment. So, like, the next thing that the local crew, like the local sweat lords, the competitive people are talking about is Adepticon, which is coming up in March. So I think we're going to have a big posse that heads out over there and get some games in for Adepticon, which is like a 6-hour drive from us, and it's still like in the Midwest United States.
Solid. How many people does Adepticon normally get attending?
Adepticon is like the biggest wargame convention like in the US. It's like there's like thousands and thousands of people in attendance, and I think the grand tournament might be I don't know, like in the 120 to 160 range, something like that. So it's going to be a big one, and like that thing is like a whole week long. So it's like you can get like 20 games in that week. It's like show up on Wednesday and play in the pods, and then on like Thursday play in the doubles tournament, and then like Saturday, Sunday play in the grand tournament, and that's like 6 more games, and all of a sudden it's like you did 12 games, but you're a maniac like me, and you did a practice game before you left, and it's like,
and that's 120 people for the grand tournament.
Yeah. It's a big one.
That's phenomenal. That's LVO size, right? That's competing right up there with LVO. That's huge.
Yeah, I think huge. Its numbers were, I think last year it was barely smaller, but it was another, I mean, LVO and Adepticon have both like sold a bunch of tickets, and then at the last minute there's a bunch of people that can't make it. So the numbers are always like a little unclear.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's huge. It's like on that same scale for sure.
Wow, I need to put that in my calendar. For sure.
Yeah.
Jason, thank you so much for making yourself available. I'm sure all of the listeners not only took away a whole bunch of nuggets in terms of, how to play, what to do when creating content, but they also got a little bit of insight into yourself, mate, and I think that's phenomenal. Thank you for joining, mate. I'm super keen to come over if you run a narrative event. Just let me know when and where.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll catch you again on the show soon, mate.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Thank you for having me on.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Catch you soon.